You are listening to the So Now What podcast with Lana Manikowski, episode number 154. So now what? These three words raced through my mind time and time again during my journey through fertility treatments. I tried desperately to have a child, but never was able. I yearned for a community to join that could understand my struggles. I couldn't find one, so I created one with the So Now What podcast. I love that you found us. Hello, hello. I'm so glad you're here for another episode of the podcast. It is really something that came to me because when I've been doing my PT, when I go to PT at a physical therapy facility, and then on top of that, I do PT at home because I live in a condo building in Chicago that has got like this full gym, has a pool. So I am super motivated to get myself back into doing the things I was able to do before my incident in November. And to accompany me on my PT at home, I've been listening to Let Them by Mel Robbins. So I'm not historically like somebody who listens to books on tape or audiobooks, I guess you'd call it, since no one has a tape player anymore. But I was listening to this last night, and I believe it was chapter 12 came up. And she was talking about a group of friends and how you get older and things sort of drift between you, not because you're doing anything wrong as a friend, but because for so much of your life when you're in school, whether it's primary grades or going off to high school or college, you are just always with your people and you're tracked on the same track, doing things, studying things, sports, whatever the event might be. You're kind of all on that same pace. And then when college ends and you go off on your own directions, life starts to unfold. And that's when people start to drift apart. So it had me start thinking about this topic that I think a lot of us have wrestled with. And I wanted to talk about it today on the podcast because the way Mel Robbins talked about it in her book, I so could see an angle for us as women without children. So I hope that you're ready to listen in. And if you're reading Let Them, let me know. I'm curious because I'd love to have a discussion about it at some point. So drop me a DM if you're reading it and tell me what you think of it so far. All right, so what I want to talk about today is that feeling of wrestling with you not being part of a club because you don't have kids. And it's one of those things that so many of us who are childless after infertility feel, but we often don't talk about that sense that there's this natural connection point for parents. Yet if you're not a parent, you feel as though you are left on the outside looking in. And let me just say, if this resonates with you, obviously you are not alone. Most everything I talk about, actually everything I talk about in the podcast is related to something that I felt at one time in my journey. And that's why, I think this podcast is so important. That's why I love that you're here every week to listen to it. But I just want you to know that I've been there too, and I know how isolating it can feel. But we're going to unpack it together today and explore how to move forward, feeling as though you have confidence to be okay with not being in the club. Have you ever walked into a room, maybe it's a family gathering, maybe it's a work event, a casual hangout with friends, and you felt like you did not belong? Ugh. Everybody seems to have this effortless connection point about their kids. They're talking about soccer schedules. They're talking about weekend hockey tournaments, sleepless nights, school projects, who knows, like funny stories about their parenting adventures. And there you are, and you're smiling and you're nodding, but deep down, you feel like an outsider, like you're speaking a completely different language. And it's just not about the conversations. Parenthood just seems to naturally provide a built-in community of mom groups, play dates, birthday parties, and these connection points that reinforce those relationships. And when you don't have that shared experience, it can feel like you're constantly on an island, like you're on the outside just searching for a way to belong. I know there's times when I feel like I just need to add to the conversation, yet I don't really have any relevant experience. And so I'm thinking to myself, like, you're really awkward that you want to sit here and like nod and weigh in on stuff that you have no clue about. But it feels lonely. And the thing about this exclusion is that it taps into a deeper wound. And when you've spent years dreaming about being a part of the mom club or the parent club, and doing everything in your power to get there, being excluded from it can feel like it's just another layer of loss. And it's not about missing out on conversations or outings. It's oftentimes about the grief of a dream that did not come true. And you know that grief is an important part of what I teach in my community because so many people don't realize that it is possible to grieve something that was only ever a dream in your mind. And that grief can show up in so many ways. Maybe you find yourself pulling back from your friends who have kids because it's just too painful to watch their lives move in a direction yours never will. Or maybe you find yourself overcompensating and making all kinds of efforts to pour extra energy in a friendship. And then you become angry because you don't feel like it's reciprocal. But there you are, just trying to show that you're still there as a friend and that you're relevant and still worthy of their time and their connection. But here's the truth I want you to hear. You are worthy. You don't need to have kids to be valuable, to be part of someone's life. Your friendships, your relationships, and your connections are just as meaningful, even if they look different than the connections that parents have. This might resonate with you. I remember years ago having a couple sets of friends who were part of my social circle for years. We did everything together in our single years and even in our early marriage years. We celebrated birthdays, we shared countless memories, happy hours, you name it. But then they started having kids and I noticed a shift. And at first it was like little things, like seeing pictures of them on social media, hanging out together with their kids, visits to the American Girl store, play dates. And then sometimes it was like family outings where it was their husbands and them, and they were like going on weekend trips together. I remember just feeling as though I was not included. And I don't think it was intentional or malicious, but it really hurt. And I try to make myself feel better, thinking they probably think I wouldn't want to come along because who without kids would want to go spend an afternoon at the American Girl store? Or maybe they assumed it was going to be hard for me. Because let's be honest, who really wants to spend a Saturday afternoon at the American Girl store? And maybe it was true. But even knowing that, it didn't make that sting feel less real. But over time, and thanks to coaching, I just can't even tell you how I've learned not to take those moments personally, even though they still sometimes sting a little. And one thing that has helped me through coaching is recognizing that most of the time, the people who unintentionally are leaving us out are doing so because they're doing the best that they can. They think that they're protecting us. They assume that we wouldn't want to participate in kid-centric activities, or that it might be painful for us to be put in situations that are around kids. What's helped me through coaching and through the tools that I teach, to my students and in my community in the Thrive After Infertility Mastermind, help people recognize it's the stuff that I've used to recognize that most of the time people are doing what they think is best, not because they want to hurt you, but they unintentionally leave us out thinking that they're protecting us. They assume that we wouldn't want to participate in kid-centric activities or that it might be painful for us to be around their kids. So with coaching, what's helped me even more is how to have honest conversations. When it feels right and if it feels right, I've brought up to friends gently, not in a blaming nature, but just more conversational and saying, hey, I saw you went to the American Girl store last weekend. If you guys ever do it again, I would totally love to tag along. I'd actually enjoy doing something like that. And, the times that I've chose to approach things in that way, it's been really positive. And those conversations reminded me that I do have a voice in my friendship. My friends care and I can advocate for myself and let people know that I want to be included. But what about conversations where you feel off guard and you're just really not sure how to bring that up? Okay, well, maybe we just decide that we're not going to have those conversations. And maybe it's a work event. Maybe it's a networking event where you haven't met people before and everyone is there talking about their kids. They have this icebreaker of, so how many kids do you have? Or, oh, tell me about your kids. And then you sit there like you're on the outside and these aren't your people. You probably can't really share the heartache that you've been through or the years of trying and the treatments that didn't work and that lost dream of motherhood. doesn't seem as comfortable to share because they don't really know your story. Maybe you deflect and you change the subject, even though them talking about all that feels like a dismissal of your own story. Or have you ever been in a situation when somebody finds out you don't have kids and then they launch into this laundry list of things that they think you should be doing? Or like, hey, have you tried relaxing more? Or have you thought about adoption? What about surrogacy? And they don't even realize that surrogacy isn't appropriate for everybody. Somebody like me who just didn't have the ability to have a healthy embryo to fertilize would not even consider surrogacy with my own eggs. So, there's questions and suggestions that seem to come from a place of curiosity from the mom club, but they also can carry something that creates this unspoken assumption and this wall that gets put up that you just don't have the ability to break in because you don't have the commonalities. And I have totally been there. I felt the sting of those conversations and the assumption that I hadn't done enough and that I'll never belong. And sometimes there was pressure to explain myself, even though I wasn't ready, just so people would feel that I was relevant and have this sense of being understood at a deeper level. These moments are hard. Those are the moments that tap into the grief that just really didn't come true. So if you've ever found yourself in one of these situations where you feel as though you're not relevant and you feel as though there's this club that doesn't invite you, I just want you to know that it's not because you've done something wrong. Maybe it's time to create your own community. Maybe it's time to join a group. In Chicago, I have a group that's for childless and child-free women. And join something like that. Maybe create it for yourself if you don't see it available to you. But so there's something I'm doing on Thursday that sort of is a segue to this. If you've ever found yourself in those situations, feeling cornered by questions about your motherhood or hurt by someone's well-meaning or misguided comments. And I'd love for you to join this masterclass I'm doing on Thursday of this week, January 30th at 6 p.m. Central. I call it How to Confidently Navigate Things People Say When You're Childless. It's designed to help you handle these conversations or these instances when you're amongst a group of people that maybe don't know your story and you don't know how to break through. We're going to talk about how to respond when somebody asks the simple question of, do you have kids? Or when they give you that unsolicited advice about what you should do to have a child. So I'm going to share tools about how to help you set boundaries, how to protect your heart, and how to stay true to yourself without feeling pressured to explain more than you're comfortable with. So if that sounds like something you are up for, I'm putting a link to it right here in the show notes. You can also go on my bio on Instagram or TikTok, anywhere that you follow me on social media, and you can sign up there. But registration's required, so make sure that you sign up. But know that if this is something that you're struggling with, I can help you. And if this episode resonated with you and you're ready to take your next step towards creating a life that feels fulfilling, even though you're not part of the mom club, I'd love to invite you to join a Thrive call with me. And during this 45-minute call, I'll help you create a plan that's going to help you move forward. It's going to help you feel confident, whether you're navigating conversations like these, whether you're trying to break into the mom club, whether you're wanting to rebuild connections with friends who you've lost touch with because their kids became a priority before you. But whatever it is, I can help you figure out what the next chapter of your life will look like. You don't have to figure this out alone. So book a Thrive call. It's free. You can find it on my website or you can find it right here in the show notes. But before you go, I just want to let you know that it's not easy to feel like you're not part of the club or to face conversations that leave you feeling misunderstood. That you are so much more than your motherhood status. You don't need to explain yourself or prove your worth to anyone. As long as you know what you are and who you are and the beauty you bring in this world, that's the most important. So I hope you have a beautiful week. I love you. And remember that it's never too late to discover your meaning. I'll talk to you next week. Hey, real quick, I just want to tell you about an awesome resource I created. If you have ever found yourself in conversations with people, or maybe people offering you suggestions about what you should do to become a mom, it's called The Top 27 Things People Say When You're Childless and How to Respond. You can get your copy free at lanamanikowski.com/thingspeoplesay.